I'm Benjamin.
My name is Pam.
My name is Reed.
My name is Waverly Birch.
My name's Ron Groves.
I own a Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus electric vehicle.
Purchased our Hyundai Kona electric vehicle in August of 2020.
I own a Tesla Model Y. We purchased it about 4 months ago.
This is my partner in my Kona EV. It's a 2021 preferred model, and it was the dealer demo, which really helps if you want a better deal on it.
My wife and I moved from Ontario in the summer of 2021 to Canmore, Alberta. And we brought along our beautiful 2018 Nissan Leaf.
Purchased our electric vehicle primarily because we were concerned about climate change.
So now I'm commuting back and forth to Calgary about 3 days a week, and I was getting more concerned about the carbon footprint that we were having driving back and forth regularly.
Financially, we crunched a number, and because we do a lot of mileage every year, we realized that despite a pretty high cost at first, we were saving quite a lot of money year after year on gas, no oil change, and all sorts of maintenance that you avoid with electric car.
And we weren't really planning on buying this car, but just sort of for fun, I took it. It's the dealer demo model, and I took it for, I think they gave me 2 or 3 days when a friend was visiting in the summer, and I drove it to Golden and back and got like 500 kilometers of range out of it when it's supposed to get about 415, they advertise. And was kind of blown away by that and realized that it was something that we could have for a really long time, and that when you did all the little math of it, because they had 0% financing, it was actually like probably not costing us a lot more than maintaining our old Subaru.
We charge our EV at home directly into a 110 volt, so the same plug as the one I use to charge my phone.
So this plugs into your normal wall outlet, and then this side plugs into the car.
Of course, we just charge it on a level 1 charger, and occasionally we'll have to come downtown and boost it with a level 3 charger if we're doing sort of back-to-back longer trips, back-to-back day after day. And of course, on a road trip, there's a bunch of publicly accessible level 2 and level 3 chargers, like this one.
When you take an EV on the road, you don't want to sit around for hours waiting for your car to charge. So here we are at the shops of Canmore, in Canmore, and here is a typical station to fast charge your car in minutes. This particular setup is from Electrify Canada, a network which goes right across the country. I have an app on my phone, and using the app, I'm going to go ahead and not only turn the charger on, but I'll use the app to pay for the charge because it's linked to my credit card.
A misconception, especially in Alberta, and I've heard this from friends of mine in Ontario who are asking me about the car, is that your EV is only going to be as efficient or as clean as your electricity grid. So that's not necessarily true. It is better to run them off of, clean power, but here where we have a very fossil fuel heavy grid, the car actually converts energy to motion much more efficiently than a gas car does. So even if you're running it off the same, gas power source, you're using a lot less.
One of the biggest misconceptions people have about electric vehicles is the difficulty with charging, especially if they're planning on driving long distances. I'm putting at least a couple hundred kilometers on my car per day when I'm commuting back and forth to Calgary. And with the range of the electric car that I have, I'm able to just charge at home every night. So it doesn't actually take much extra time. It charges while I'm sleeping, and I wake up with a freshly charged battery and a warm car every morning.
The biggest one I think, though, that's really prevalent right now that people are talking about is they think that electric vehicles won't work in the winter time. They kind of compare the electric vehicle battery to like your cell phone battery.
Quite the opposite. The battery doesn't die in the cold. From what I understand, it actually preserves it. It does lose a bit of range, but the battery is totally fine. It's much bigger than the cell phone, and it's different chemistry.
I might have a slight reduction in range, but you take that into account when you're planning your trips, doing your driving.
The vehicles have a very good battery management system, and I've never gotten into my vehicle and had it not start. There are benefits to an electric vehicle in winter. One is when you get into a cold vehicle and you turn it on, the heat that you get is almost instantaneous.
Another misconception, I think, is that you can't take longer trips in like a semi-affordable, like very relative term, but EV. We drove to Ontario and back in December for Christmas. We were very thankful to have the car because we left a little early when Omicron got crazy. But we drove through Saskatchewan at minus 35. You have to stop more frequently. It takes a bit longer to charge, but we did it it took about half a day longer to a day longer when it was really cold versus what it would take in a gas car. So I think that one of the main challenges for us was finances. It's really hard to sort of conceptualize some of the math versus what you would typically think.
Well, I'm paying about 11 to 12 cents a kilowatt hour. So it costs me about $1.75 to fill up my Leaf when I plug it in at home. Also, my car has an electric motor and no transmission, no greasy bits in there. So there's very little maintenance to my car.
And if you can finance the car, which a lot of dealers are offering, like very low cost, or in our case 0% financing, you can actually end up with something that might cost you like roughly the same as an older car that you're maintaining.
I think one of the challenges or barriers when we were looking at getting an electric vehicle was availability and just different models that would meet our needs. We ended up getting the Model Y just because it was basically the only car on the market 6 months ago that had the range that allowed me to commute back and forth to Calgary without having to charge in the middle, that also had all-wheel drive, which I thought was important for safety in the winter. And then when we ordered the vehicle, it took almost 6 months to get here, and I understand that's even a little bit worse now. Hopefully over the next year that will get better as more and more companies are making electric vehicles and there's more and more selection. But it does take a bit of lead time if you decide to purchase an electric vehicle to when you actually get it.
Barriers that we encountered when we were purchasing our electric vehicle a year and a half ago probably came down to a sort of lack of information and lack of supply. There weren't very many electric vehicles being offered in Alberta at the time, and there's very few dealerships that were even bringing them in onto the lots for us to even try out. So we were able to obtain some information online, and there was a Electric Vehicle Association of Alberta has a great Facebook page where we could sort of listen in on conversations about other people's experiences with electric vehicles and ask questions if we needed to, and so that was helpful.
The advice I would give to other people that would like to purchase an EV would be to actually talk to other EV owners if they can. That would help them a lot.
Either people you know personally or the people at the dealerships that have now more experience in dealing with electric vehicles, or even an online forum where people like to talk about their vehicles a lot and just ask questions.
Social media is fantastic. So on Facebook and Twitter and all of the social media channels, there are specific channels for the various types of cars. There's a Nissan Canada Leaf owner page on Facebook. Tons and tons of chat there, and you can reach many, many owners to ask them the million questions that you have.
The biggest thing would be to drive demo vehicles that you're allowed to keep for a couple days and really get an idea of how it would fit into your life. This is really the only thing that convinced me that it could actually be possible and made me want to move forward with this.
Because they're super fun to drive. The instant torque is amazing and gives me a lot of security when I want to pass people on the highway or merge onto the highway. And the regenerative braking is just fun, like knowing that when you're stopping and recharging your battery or going down the mountain hill and being able to recharge the battery at the same time is amazing.
There's a bunch of awesome range calculators online to see if it would fit with their day-to-day commuting and what they're doing with their vehicle.
Something, especially in the Bow Valley, I think that's important to think about is charging. You know, I really appreciate that a lot of us live in condos, which is more efficient in terms of land use, but that also means that we don't have garages maybe that you can just install a charger in. So you have to think about that a little bit. More recently, I got on our condo board and negotiated a bit of a power use agreement for our underground parking. Again, just an outlet on the wall. We pay a monthly fee of $50, which BC Hydro says that to charge this. I understand different charging or electricity costs, but like to charge this car, you're probably at like $40 a month, and that's what I was seeing on our electricity bill too when we were plugged into our house, was like 30 to 40. So we're happy to pay the bit extra just for the convenience. And we've traded parking spots with one of our neighbors so that we're able to plug in, and we're working on a more long-term charging solution with the condo board.
So we made the calculation because we're driving a lot. We realized we thought we would actually save $2,000 or $3,000 a year just in gas with this car, including the electricity costs. But we realize now we're probably in line to save between $4,000, $5,000, or even $6,000 a gas and oil change per year. And basically, what happens with this car, electric car, is like all the main pieces that break down. Think about muffler, brakes, transmission, engine. They don't exist, so there's very low maintenance costs on these cars.
You talk to any EV driver and you ask them, would you go back to a gas car? Pretty much all of them will say, no way. Like, I'm not going back to that.
Just do it. Like, honestly, you won't regret it. Super fun.
Wow. It's fast. Do you like the car?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My motivation towards an electric car came from a place of wanting to take a personal climate action that would tie into like a system-wide change in people who had the position and privilege to do so. However, the best antidote to climate change is system-wide change. This only became feasible for me very recently, and I think that ultimately I wouldn't want to see anyone going into a position where they are making a personal sacrifice when the majority of emissions come from a very small handful of large companies.